It takes 180 pounds of copper to make a Tesla or other electric vehicle. This is 5 times the amount of copper that it takes to make a combustion engine vehicle. It takes about 450 pounds to build a normal house once you include appliances, wiring, and all the fixtures. And that's before you put solar panels on it, if that's the way you go. That's going to take another 150 pounds worth of copper wiring. A solar farm used to generate energy to deliver to houses takes 5 times the copper that it would take for an equivalent natural gas, coal-fired, or nuclear power plant. If we are going to turn over all of the cars back into electric vehicles, we're going to need a lot more copper within the next 10 years. If we're going to build houses for all of the millennials, the largest generation on the planet, we're going to need a lot more copper. If all of the people that want to do renewables, such as wind and solar, want to build that stuff, we're going to need a lot more copper. This red metal, sometimes called Dr. Copper, because it has an uncanny ability to predict recessions and economic booms because we use it to build everything. And if we're building stuff, we're unlikely to go into recession. And if we're not building things, we're likely to go into recession. Factories, our houses, appliances, cars, all of this stuff requires copper, and that's never going to change because if we look at the periodic table of elements, copper has no alternative. The only thing that conducts electricity better than copper is silver. And of course, there's nowhere near enough of it, making it so expensive that we'll never, ever replace any meaningful amount of copper with silver. Let's take this one step further. 20% of the population on Earth uses about 50% of the copper. 13% of the global population has no electricity. 3 out of 4 people don't have access to a car. So if the 80% of the world that doesn't use that much copper starts using more copper through things like appliances, cars, and bigger houses, then we could see an even bigger tailwind for copper. But the price of copper, though it has risen, doesn't appear to have baked in the reality of just how much copper we're going to need. And now the velocity with which we are going to try to acquire it. Because Russia, Ukraine, once again, Russia coming into the mix, has sparked a fervor in the EU to move more and more and more into renewables, which, as we talked about before, requires 5 times the amount of copper. It's also going to spur the idea for electric vehicles even further. And while we're great at recycling copper and putting it back to use, we don't have enough to recycle to make all these new wants and energy desires a reality. And it takes a long time to bring copper mines online, usually 5 to 10 years to bring a whole new mine that's producing metal into the market. 3 ways to trade copper if you wanted to go that way. You could go the futures route, trades under the symbol HG. If you wanted to go the ETF route and just take a basket of copper stocks, you could use the ETF COPX. If you wanted to trade individual companies, some of the bigger copper miners out there are Freeport-McMoRan, Rio Tinto, Teck, and BHP Billiton. Follow for more must-know market concepts.